morning, students. Welcome to today's lesson on methods of teaching biology. In this lesson, we are going to learn about communication in teaching. And this is session 6 of unit 6, the last session for this course. Okay, so communication is very important as we teach. So teaching will not be possible without communication, since communication forms an integral part of teaching. So we have to know what communication is and how to communicate. So these are the objectives for this lesson. So in the objectives, we are saying 1, identify the element of communication. 2, describe the element of communication. 3, enumerate ways to foster efficient communication. So by the end of this session, you should be able to do these things or practice these things. Now, before we look at the elements of communication, let us ask ourselves, what is communication? Now, communication can be defined as the exchange of opinion, ideas, or information between two or more persons with the help of some channel to accomplish the desired purpose. So we say communication is a cyclic process that starts when the sender feels that there is a need to communicate with the receiver for a particular reason. So with this one, the sender creates a message which is dispatched to the receiver through a channel. And then the receiver takes delivery of the message and provides feedback to the sender. The sender gets the feedback and determines whether the receiver has received the right message and has been able to adduce the intended meaning. So the sender may initiate the whole process again if he feels that the intended meaning was not received. So basically, that is the explanation for communication. And from the process of communication, as I have explained, there are certain elements that can be deduced from that. So the elements of communication, we have the sender, a message channel of communication, receiver, and then feedback. So we are going to discuss the elements one after the other. Now first we look at sender. The sender is the person who initiates the process of communication. So we are saying that the sender must be aware of the purpose of the communication as well as the receiver's abilities to understand the message being sent. So in the classroom, messages are sent between the teacher and the student, and then each of these personalities, that is the teacher or student, should be the sender depending on the situation. So it could be that you, the teacher, you are the sender or the receiver as well as the student. Okay. The next one is the message. Message. There cannot be communication without a message. It is because of the need to send a message across that is where one needs to communicate. Okay. So we are saying that the sender creates and conveys the message to the receiver, and then the messages should be clear and simple so that the receiver can understand it just as the sender intended. So that is the explanation for the message. Now we look at the channels of communication. Now, channels of communication are the medium through which the message is communicated to the receiver. And channels of communication play a very critical role in the process of communication. So the selected channel can impact either positively or negatively on the message being sent. So when you are sending a message, you have to get a good channel of communication. Now, the next one we'll look at is the receiver. The receiver is the person who receives the message. And then a single person or a group of persons could be the receiver. So it is the duty of the receiver to understand the message and send the appropriate feedback. Okay. So the next one is the feedback. Feedback, that is what the receiver provides to the sender after the message has been received. So that is very crucial to the process of communication, and it is based on the feedback that the sender will be able to decipher whether the intended meaning has been grasped by the receiver. Without feedback, the process of communication cannot be complete. It cannot be complete. Okay, so these are the elements of communication that you, the teacher, you have to always keep in mind when you are communicating with your students. Now, we will look at the types of communication. There are two main types of communication that can go on in the classroom. We have the verbal and the non-verbal communication. Now, with the verbal communication, it is where the sender conveys information, facts, or opinions either verbally or in writing to the receiver. So either you speak or you write it to the receiver. So whilst I'm teaching you, I'm communicating verbally to you guys. And also at the same time, my slides is also communicating to you guys. Okay. And then we look at the non-verbal communication. This takes place when there are no words involved in sending the message from the sender to the receiver. So here the sender uses body language, facial expression, hand movement, and eye movement to convey the message to the receiver. So when you go to the School of Deaf and Dumb, you see them communicating with body language. Now, how to promote effective communication in the classroom? How to promote effective communication in the classroom? That is the next thing to look at. Teachers need to make sure their communication in the classroom is effective. And without effective communication, students may misinterpret ideas and concepts being taught. So in order to achieve excellent communication in the classroom, teachers should ensure that they follow these things. So one, they have to use simple, unambiguous words. Use simple, unambiguous words. Two, use simple and short statements. Use simple and short statements. Three, you have to identify and use language that students can easily understand. You don't speak big English, bring in your big vocabularies to confuse students. Just go straight to the point. Speak the language of the students. Speak the language at their level. So the next one is you have to speak in clear and audible voice. You have to have a clear voice in order for students to hear what you are trying to communicate. Also, avoid being monotonous in tone. You have to avoid being monotonous in tone. And then use appropriate body language to communicate. Use appropriate body language to communicate. The last thing to look at is their body language and facial expression are congruent with their verbal message. So what is happening while students are seeing you is an expression of the communication you are giving to the students. Okay, so we've learned a lot in this session. We've learned about communication. We've learned about the various elements of communication. We know what communication is. Okay, we learned the types of communication in the classroom, and we also learn how to promote effective communication in the classroom. So we have to review the session. So in reviewing the session, I've given you a hint of what we've learned. But I want you to answer these questions in order to help you review what we've learned so far. Question number 1. Identify the elements of communication. Question number 2. Describe the elements of communication. And then the last one, I'm saying that enumerate ways to foster efficient communication. So these are the questions you answer in order to review what we've learned so far.